The halls of Castle Nianzvht. The magnificence of Castle Nianzvht was beyond words. Emperor Direwolf undertook great pains to erect the castle during a civil war, and a war with neighboring empires that desired the benefits and protection of the Black Wildwood. The Black Wildwood was like a natural fortress. Its dense wood was woven with vigorous oak vines from massive trees, undulating roots cascading in and out of the richly dark, earth-like serpents. The Black Wildwood was a labyrinth of confusing, endless trails and certain death. Sheer drops from hidden cliffs would confound battalions on assault. Jagged, razor-sharp rocks, rumored to pierce even the finest of chainmail and armor. The woods were a death trap for anyone other than the farmers and warriors who were born and raised near the Black Wildwood. Whole armies could not penetrate the wood, forcing regiments to separate into smaller battalions and squads. A warrior unlucky enough not to be eviscerated by a ruthless attack from Emperor Direwolf's fierce troops would find himself lost in the woods with enough food and water to sustain him for a lifetime as he wandered helplessly and hopelessly. Many warriors who were lost took their own lives in a final attempt to end their misery. It was disgraceful for a warrior to die in the woods instead of on the battlefield. Dying of starvation was an even greater tragedy that would follow the warrior into the afterlife. None wanted such a label upon him in death, as messengers ferried him to the god of walls and moats, Nianzvht, who would decide the warrior's fate in the afterlife. Cries and wails echoing in the chilly night from physically and emotionally beaten warriors gave birth to old wives' tales and children's cautionary tales about restless spirits in the Black Wildwood. Emperor Direwolf used those tales and encouraged the legends of the whispering spirits to deter his enemies from attack as he built his empire, and, ultimately, the beautiful castle of Nianzvht. The hallways of Nianzvht Castle were constructed of stone walls and white marble columns and accented in jade. Gold, multicolored crystals, and onyx statues adorned corners in a labyrinth of corridors and the great room. The interior rooms were lined with bamboo walls and oak frames in an open floor plan, and decorated with straw mats and a sliding door made of a latticed screen covered with white mulberry paper. Flowers were everywhere, in royal colors, purple, red, green, and yellow. Ivory columns were on either side of the king and queen's thrones in the great room. But now, the splendor of Nianzvht Castle was a mere backdrop, a bothersome maze of identical corridors that plagued Callan as he raced down the corridors with the darkness of sheer panic in his eyes. He turned corner after corner, one indistinguishable from the previous, and ran. His rapid flight wafted at the flames of burning torches hanging from brick walls and fine wood doorways. He was scared. Moments earlier, a servant had come into his chamber to notify the king that Shayla had been found and returned. However, there was terrible news. Shayla was in severe, unbearable pain. Something had happened to her in the Black Wildwood, something unnatural and sudden. She would never be the same again. As Callan raced to the patient chamber in the apothecary suite, those words echoed in his brain. Shayla would never be the same again. It made his heart ache. He loved Shayla with all his heart. She was better than he. Her grace and majesty forced him to strive to be better. Although the throne chose Shayla for him through a planned marriage, Callan grew to love and adore her. He rarely showed it, though. Such fawning might label him as a sympathetic king. He was too fierce a warrior to have such softness bestowed upon him. So, even though his heart yearned for Shayla with every fibre of his being, Callan kept her at arm's length at every moment of his life. But now, There was nothing his skills on the battlefield could do. There was no sword play, no fight, and no battle he would surely win that could undo the words of his servant. She would never be the same again. Kaelin was rocked to the core when Shayla's agonizing cry thundered through the hallways with the roar of a mortally wounded lioness. He would never be the same again. The patient chamber was unlike other lavish, intricately designed areas of Nianzvht castle. The air was overwrought with the robust and stinging scent of menthol used in rich balms and herbal salves. The chamber was simple, functional, and mathematically laid out to give the managing physician, Ping, easy access to all the tools of his trade: blades, roaring fire for boiling water, a shelf of herbs, multiple sizes of mortars and pestles, wash bowls, chin straps, restraints, and small, medium, and large bits to bite down on. All were within 3 steps of the leading bed where Shayla lay. Kaelin brushed past Forsen, Safford, and 2 guards at the door. He stormed in and immediately locked eyes with Ping as he deployed another tool of the trade, stirrups. Ping propped Shayla's thin leg and foot into the second stirrup as Eowyn, a no more aged than 15 servants, rushed to his side with a small tub of heated water. Kaelin's eyes drifted downward to Shayla. She smiled, although her face contorted with pain. And then Kaelin saw why Shayla would never be the same. Her belly was rotund and heavy. "Greetings," Shayla uttered politely as she gritted her teeth in pain. "My eyes deceive me," whispered Kaelin. He was trying to convince himself more than anyone else. Ping stood to face Kaelin, as if Ping could explain the gravity of Shayla's pregnancy could only be eye to eye. "You witness the truth, my lord," he said. "Empress Shayla is pregnant and ready to give birth, but there is much more than oddity here. The child comes too fast." "But how can this be, Ping?" Kaelin uttered softly. Ping took Kaelin by the shoulders in a loving, fatherly way. "Nephew, that is something you will have plenty of time to discern later. Before we lose both, let me care for my niece, my queen, your wife, and child." Kaelin backed away, but his mouth hung agape as if words were on his mind and on his tongue that eluded him. The world spun around, and he could barely make out Eowyn's soft voice as she opened the door for him. There was something Kaelin needed to say, something he might not ever get a chance to tell his beloved queen, something that had become lost in the ripple of time since Shayla was lost 8 hours ago. And now, as she lay prone, ready to give birth to a full-term child. And then Shayla groaned so loudly and with so much pain that Kaelin gasped, stumbled back, and shut the door behind him. Kaelin stumbled into the passageway outside the patient chamber, where Forsen and Safford waited in fear. As things went, Kaelin was always unpredictable. His temper and temperament often far exceeded what any predicament required. Now, he stood before Forsen and Safford, angry and afraid, with his fists and arms clenched in a losing battle to stop the violent trembling in his body. Forsen stepped forward timidly to thwart Kaelin's tendency for raging tantrums. "I have seen many wonders in the Black Wildwood, but it does not cause women to become heavy with a child in a single day. Madness overcomes us." Shayla's screams reverberate in the hallway, traveling past the trio of men and into the darkness. Kaelin shakes his head incredulously. "It is not madness if we witness the same abomination." The word irks Safford. "Abomination, my lord?" "Shayla and I labored many years for children, but the so-called gods did not answer my prayers." Kaelin menaced threateningly. "Would you have me believe that these events are anything but an atrocity?" "My lord," Safford pleaded, I would not believe it had I not seen it with my own eyes. The queen cries out to the spirit of the black wildwood. Folson scoffed. Pluck a child from your belly, and you too will scream to the gods. But these events follow the prophecy. Safford tried to interject, but Kaelin exploded angrily and shoved him into the wall. He jammed his powerful forearm against Safford's throat, choking off his air. I will hear no more foolishness of spirits and prophecies. Callan raged in Safford's ear. Do you not see the truth, you superstitious fool? A poison festers inside my queen. It bloats her stomach and causes great pain. Suddenly, a baby's cry echoes in the corridor. The high-pitched wail rises to a crescendo and then finds its non-stop, continuous pattern, leaving the men stunned in disbelief. Kaelin backs away. Safford welcomes the distraction and gulps in the air. As you wish, my lord, he coughed, but I know no poison that cries aloud in the chilly night air. Mother and daughter are well, my lord, Ping exclaimed, turning to face Kaelin as he cautiously entered the patient chamber. Shayla had already covered the wiggling, energetic child in swaddling cloth made of rich jade silk and a delicate, buttery, soft cotton blanket. Carlin inched closer. I have a daughter. Shayla beamed. You have a princess, my lord, she said proudly. She tugged the blanket away from the child, unveiling a beautiful baby girl with eyes as big as the moon, plump pink lips, hair curled in black tufts like lamb's wool, and shimmering skin the color of umber. There were intricate birthmarks on the baby's temples and cheeks on either side. They were vine-like patterns, lighter than the rest of her brown skin, and mirror images of each other. The baby looked up at Kaelin with big, observant eyes. She locked her gaze upon him, and he froze. There was something about this child. She was exquisitely enamoring, yet the hair on his neck stood erect. Kaelin sensed fear welling inside of him as the young baby refused to turn its eyes away. It was almost defiant. She imprinted on him the same way she had on Shayla moments earlier. She would love him forever. Kaelin stared back at the baby for a moment, deeply in awe of her, and then shocked by the sight of the baby's brown-colored skin. He became utterly oblivious to the bright smile beaming from the beautiful child's wide-open and alert eyes. He drew back as if he was avoiding the venomous sting of a deadly snake. Callan, what is the matter? Shayla pleaded, fearing the worst. Without taking his eyes off the child, Kaelin summoned a guard from the hallway with a gesture so slight that only the trained guards of the royal family could see it. What is the matter? He quizzed her. How can you not see? This child is not ours. The guard rushed in and stood beside Shayla's bed, his eyes fixed on the child, and his hand firmly grasping the hilt of his double-edged sword. Shayla pushed herself higher on the bed to appear more authoritative, but the pain between her legs forced a grimace and an audible moan from her lips. Not ours? She fired back. My lord, of course, she is ours. She sprouted from my belly. She is beautiful and healthy. This baby is our child. You speak foolishly, woman, he screamed. It is sorcery born of demons in the forest. He nodded to the guard, who released his hilt and reached for the baby. Her maternal instincts kicked in, and Shayla held the baby with one arm and back-slapped the guard with the other. Kaelin, she is blessed by the Black Mountain. The spirit of the Black Lotus has kissed her. Kaelin ignored her. Guard, take it now. The guard grabbed the baby's arm, but Shayla jammed the heel of her foot deep into his stomach and then upward to strike his jaw. 2 otherwise perfect strikes resulted from her years of training, but the effects were less than optimal. The harsh treatment her body had been subjected to by sudden birth had weakened her. The sudden movement caused her to groan in pain. Her legs and abdomen felt numb. The guard released the baby and reeled from the impact. Before he could recover, Shayla clawed at the guard's face with her free hand. Her nails scraped his skin with such ferocity that thick red welts stretched across his face and neck. Droplets of blood leaked from the abrasions. The guard would have instinctively struck back if she were any other person. A swift backhand or a punch to the jaw would end this feeble resistance. The guard had seen war, had been in battle against raging armies, and survived. He had the war wounds and scars to prove it. This post was a reward for all his efforts on the battlefield, standing watch over the sick and the dying, no chance of facing dangerous enemies. Yet there he stood, in the fight of his life, defenseless. On the one hand, his king, King Callan, had given him a direct order. On the other hand, he would have to inflict pain on this queen, Empress Shayla, to carry out the king's order. Choosing was the most dangerous battle he'd ever faced. There would be no survival if he mishandled the situation. He opted to step away and do nothing. He must command him again if the king wants him to subdue the queen. Can unsuccessfully attempted to cast a level gaze at Shayla. He took deep breaths to calm his rage and stifled his displeasure with the dark-skinned child. "Shayla, you risk your life and that of my kingdom," he almost pleaded. "What if the baby carries a plague that turns its skin so? A plague to fester in our home and throughout the land?" Shayla moved the baby into her other arm, away from the guard, who had stepped back even further. She pushed herself upright and groaned in protest at the pain radiating across her belly and in her thighs. Birthing a child was a painful endeavor by any means, but Shayla has gone through 9 months of pregnancy in just a few hours. Her body had stretched and transformed in ways no one could understand. Indeed, no man could comprehend. But she was a queen, and the pain was dealt with inside the mind, not externally, for everyone to see and judge. "Sweet Callan, my lord, our dedicated physician Ping has delivered a healthy daughter unto us, a daughter born of my womb," she said bravely. "The womb you once cursed as being barren. She is our child. She is an child." She stared directly into Kaelin's bloodshot eyes. It was not a gesture of defiance, but of confidence. She needed to make a point and know that the king understood her conviction, regardless of his next move. Fulson's voice cut through the air, devoid of any formality. "My king, your attention wanes. Shayla, once a vessel, is now irrelevant. The spirits decree that this child, this creature of brown skin, is beyond the rule of any man, even you. She will bow only to the black wildwood. You must slay the child." Fulson's words had the desired effect. He was smug as Kaelin stumbled dizzily and propped himself up with a hand against a marble column. He was emotionally exhausted, and Fulson had him where he needed to be. Without warning, Kaelin straightened, his figure towering and formidable. The weariness etched on his face morphed into a menacing snarl. A switch had flipped within him, setting off a storm of thoughts that resonated deep within his soul. Kaelin teetered on the precipice of reason, only to emerge more robust, more ferocious. "No," he commanded with a booming thunder that shook the great room's walls. Fulson had seen that look in Callan's eyes before. He stood very still, kept his eyes on the floor, and did nothing to suggest anything but perfect agreement with whatever the king was about to say. "Trite sagas of gods and spirits will not move me. If I slay the child, I will lose Shayla. She must yield to her king. You must make it so, monk." Whenever Callan referred to Falson as a monk in a demeaning tone, he mocked the questionable spiritual enlightenment and wisdom of all men who called themselves religious. Callan did not care for such things. If he could not see it, taste it, or kill it with his bare hands or sword, it did not matter. "You will give the matter thought, Falson." Callan's words were a command, not a plea. "And you will help me show Shayla the way," he added with finality. Falson bowed with deep respect. He knew the matter was closed. If he were to say another word, he'd be risking his life. Silently, he knew there would be other chances to change the Emperor's mind and coerce him into doing the intelligent thing, destroying the child. But for now, it was best to remain quiet and let the situation evolve. Callan, satisfied with Falson's silence, watched the monk's departure. He knew Falson's true nature, his penchant for manipulation and scheming. He knew that Falson would now set his machinations in motion, making others suffer for the sake of his king.